Welcome to a new episode of Manage to Retain, where I talk about issues around business for employees, your customers, recruiting, retention, productivity, and profitability. And I do it with my friends, Sherri and Lou. Listen in, you might get a few tips here on how to do leadership better in your business. Hi, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Manage to Retain. My name is Vinay Raman. I'm the CEO of Carmo. We're a visualization and data analytics company. What we do is we take data from companies and we decode the human and organizational behaviors from that data. We help you become more empathetic and effective as a leader so you can act more compassionately. But that's the data side, the numbers, and that's just one side of the business. There's a whole other side, which is the soft skills and the personality and the inner development that it takes to become a good leader. And to do that, I've brought my two good friends, Sherri and Lou. Sherri and Lou, how are you all doing today?
Doing excellent, Benai. How are you?
I'm super. I'd like to talk about that softer side, that inner development, that leadership skill set. Tell me about the Lou Everett Group and what you all do for leaders and companies.
Sure, and I know we talk about the softer side, but I want to challenge everyone out there to call it power side instead. Power skills, right? That's really what it is. It does give power and empowerment to other people by having these type of skills. But we know what we're talking about there. But anyway, Sherri and I own the Lou Everett Group. We are empowerment leadership developers. We develop your teams. We help develop teams in a way that provides empowerment in the culture of your company so that it can target the bottom line. That's what it comes down to. And we're able to do that strategically through our 10 principles and using our a little over 5 decades of combined experience, not just us, but we have a team of individuals we can layer on top of that. And now we're looking at over 115 years of experience combined in the leadership, communication, conflict resolution space. So with that combination, we're able to come on in and identify based on the data that you pull, what it is that we can target to make sure the bottom line is fulfilled.
All right. So now that you know who we are, I want to start to tell you a story. And this story is about me. All right. I like to think on most days, I like to think I'm a pretty sharp guy. I'm smart. I know what I'm doing. I remember I was working at this one job a number of years ago. And I'd always been a technical guy most of my life. And then I got asked to step into a sales role. And unbeknownst to me, I was actually pretty good at sales, well, at least by the numbers, because the previous person before me was making some numbers. I was eclipsing them by an order of about 4 to 5 times on a monthly basis. I was knocking home runs almost every single day. And gosh, I mean, a 4 or 5x increase in sales every month. I think that's a pretty good story, especially for a cloud company, a SaaS company that's all based on recurring revenue. That's a huge, huge step forward. But I'm going to do my best Belarusian accent here because my boss was from Belarus. And every month, I could never get a smile out of him. Every month, I would kill it. For 7 quarters straight, I was the highest grossing salesperson in that company. And we had about, 85 employees. So I was really kicking some tail. And I was new to the job. I was pretty proud of myself. But every first of every month, or the first business day of every month, my boss would say, Vinay, what have you done for me lately? I'm like, what are you talking about? I just killed it again. I mean, it's been 21 months now that I've been doing this. So what? And every single time I was like, what are you talking about? I just killed it. I can't even get a smile. Maybe just let's go for a cup of coffee. Can you just buy me buy me French fries at McDonald's, something? Nothing. I eventually left that company because I couldn't stand working for that guy because I thought I was doing great. Everyone else told me I was doing great except my boss. Mm-hmm. That employee experience, I left. I was making a lot of money at that company, and I left to go take a lower salary just because I couldn't stand the guy.
Yeah.
Employee experience matters a lot to me. Have you all seen the same thing in companies that you work with, that employee experience, if not managed properly, can cause the same effect?
Trying not to laugh about this whole thing because realistically, not only have we've worked with companies as of late with this, but we've experienced this. That type of experience that you experienced. There are reasons why Sherri and I removed ourselves from high-level executive jobs in the corporate space to start our own company over 5 years ago, to do exactly this, is to bring awareness and solutions into companies so that they can understand where it is that they can add value to somebody. And here's the big question, Vinay, that goes with you. So yes, we see this constantly. Usually it's a symptom, but the symptom is never portrayed to us by those calling us for come in and train. We need you to come in. Can you do communication training? Okay, well, why? Like, what's happened? And we dig deep enough, the symptom finally arises to where they might relay some information to us, but we're not going to get to the root of it without the right kind of data. I'm not going to find out that customer or that client experience, or what I call customer experience, because our employees are customers. We're not going to find that experience out unless we do what? Ask them. Yeah. That's where the data comes in. So we can't add value to other people if we do not value them first.
And actually, statistically too, people don't leave jobs, they leave managers and bosses. So case in point with your situation, you loved everything else, but you left because of your boss and that experience that you just couldn't tolerate it anymore.
We judge the culture based on that experience.
Yep.
So there are people who might be listening in. You might be listening to this live, or you may be listening to this as a replay. I'd love to hear from you. Have you had a similar experience, kind of like poor old me? And I mean, I was a 26-year-old making well into six figures, which 26-year-old, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And I left that to go take a less than six-figure job because I couldn't stand the guy. I mean, sometimes I still ask myself, well, come on, I could have made a lot more money. I'm curious if you listening in have had anything similar. It may not be about the money piece, right? But it's just the fact that the employee experience mattered so much that you made a left turn at Albuquerque because it just didn't make sense to you. It just didn't feel right. Mm-hmm. But that said, as a leader now, I don't want to do that. I try to keep that from being in my blind spot, that I'm creating an employee experience where someone says to me, yeah, man, I need to go somewhere else. I don't want to ever let that occur. Not on my watch. At least I'm going to try to do everything in my best effort to prevent that from occurring. Mm-hmm. And I would love to hear from anyone in the audience. If you're listening to this, what kind of methods do you use to try to prevent that from occurring? I'd love to hear your ideas and thoughts. And as you're typing that in, I'd like to show you maybe one more way to do that, because I'm a data guy. Hold on. I'm going to share my screen here. And I'm going to show you an employee experience assessment. Sherri and Lou, before I do this, do you feel like a lot of companies, a lot of leaders do take efforts, or what are the kind of common efforts that they take to try to improve that employee experience?
Well, there are some common ones that kind of practices. Whether they're best practices or not is really another conversation we can have, right? But a lot of times, surveys. Let's do our yearly employee satisfaction survey. Sound familiar? That'll help, because that'll make them feel like we really want to hear what they have to say. And then what we do is for months leading up to it, and then for months afterward, we really want to hear your voice. Please take this. We're really listening to you. We're really listening to you. And you're like the best boss in the world, best company in the world for the first couple of weeks leading up to it. They take it. And then you sit down as a board, you go over the survey, and then you find out, the blame is never put on the leaders actually running the show. We generally try to, that's right, and it should be.
One finger pointing at them, three fingers pointing at us, right?
That's it. So that is what a solution that has been seen. Other solutions that are very common right now are, let's do a roundtable. Let's identify what the problems are. So we get the roundtable of all the team leaders and managers involved. What is the problem with what is happening? This is what we're seeing. And we get feedback. Not a bad place to begin. But then where does it go? What's the next step, right? You are the experts in your field, but what about experts in employee engagement? What about experts in employee development? Where does that fall? And how can you go about making this more beneficial by using the right data?
So I'd like to ask again in the audience, if you're listening into this, have you tried those methodologies? Yes or no is a perfectly good answer. I'd love to hear if you've tried those, if you found some of them more effective than others, because I'd like to make a little bit of a transition here and kind of share with you how you can take some of those employee assessments. This is an employee assessment that we've created, and we've taken some of that data out of that assessment and actually created a graph. And let me show you what that visualization, because they say a picture says 1,000 words. Let me show you how you can see 1,000 words in this graph. So there are 10 questions here. Is it challenging work? Yes. Highly agree is out here on the edge. Highly disagree is here in the middle. Growth in tasks. Highly agree, highly disagree. You get the point. So highly agree is on the outside edge. So you would love to see this employee answer everything as a highly agree, which would mean this whole thing would be completely blue. The blue actually shows how this employee answered, and this gray shows you how the average employee answered. You can also see that here on this table. Challenging work. This employee believes on a scale of 1 to 10, yes, or 90 out of 100. The average employee feels a 60 out of 100. And you can go down this list. You can see this employee feels like they've got a tremendous amount of stress because they strongly disagree that it's low stress at work, more so than their average, than the average employee. Sherri and Lou, let's stop for a second here and kind of like take stock of this. By just looking at this graph, do you feel like you've got a felt sense of how this employee feels?
Without even meeting them, you can identify right now where their pain points are. Interest, and as a side note to understand something here, this is, if those watching right now and listening, if you're seeing what I'm seeing here, this is a very different type of an assessment or survey than any traditional survey that you might be engaging in your company. Employee satisfaction surveys are what? 80 questions, whatever they might be. Not that they're not valuable, but let's be real. The majority of those questions are fluff questions to attempt to make your employees feel better, think that they're being listened to. And I'm going to tell you from firsthand experience, they know that that's what it's for. And they don't like it. That's why it's difficult to get them to take these things. This, on the other hand, how many questions was on this, Vinay? 9, 10 questions. And they're very strategic, very pointed, very direct questions. And in this case, because of this, we had employees take it. And this employee very specifically is now giving us an indication that because of the stress level, do you not think that their stress level impacts their view of their promotion options, or if their opinions really matter, or if their work is really meaningful or not? Yes, of course it does.
Now, a question that's been brought up to me in the past about this is, first of all, we've got the email address of the employee. You don't necessarily need to do that. And this is a fictional email address. We don't have demo psychosociographic information shown up here, but you can put race, ethnicity, seniority levels, branch, all kind, branch or division that they work for. You can segment in all those different ways. You can get all of those pieces of information. One of the other things we've done here is we have shown that this is in sales. You can start to see that we've executive, service techs, sales. We can have all the different roles, so you can segment by role. You can start to see my salespeople are feeling good. This one is a salesperson. So this person is feeling lots of stress, and they don't feel like it's meaningful work and that their opinion matters to their boss, and they don't feel like there's any promotion option. I got to tell you, a salesperson who doesn't feel like they can get promoted or do better, feels like their boss is putting undue amount of friction on top of them, and there's lots of stress. If they're not getting their employment level is really high here, this might be somebody who is not going to be pushing to the next level, is what I'm saying, because the environment is not giving to them. So you can start to look at all these environmental factors here. Now, quickly, in a moment, see how they're feeling and that narrative that's showing up for them.
It's a good point, because you see the overall score is a 6, so it's not like a terrible score.
No, that's right.
But are we going to grade it based upon the average score? Or are we going to look at this individually and say, well, their stress is super high, but yet they say they're happily employed? What's the reason for that? Right now, let's dig a little deeper here. And yeah, so this gives a little bit more information than just an overall viewpoint.
I was talking to someone the other day who has an employee who's a triathlete, and they're a good hard performer. They put their head down and do their work because they want to get it done, but their true passion is something else, right?
Yeah.
And you may well be aware of it. This person says they're well paid. Gosh, this might be the perfect employee for you, right? They're going to get their job done. They do feel like there's a little bit of stress. If you lower that stress level, you might be able to get this person to perform at the next level.
Right.
But they're not going to be pushing any harder because they're very, very comfortable where they are. And if you don't lower that stress level, you will not be able to move to the next level. And if you're okay with it, that's fine. But now you can make that conscientious decision there.
100%. That's a very, very valid point. And just imagine and this person obviously is a high performer. It's clear. And if that's the case, what if we can get 10% more?
Yep.
We can reduce the stress and get 10% more work, 10% more production, like really good, effective production. That could change numbers significantly.
Want to reach out to the audience here. I'm curious, looking at this graph, do you feel like you can get a felt sense of who this person is? I mean, I'm not asking you to tell me who it is, but can you visualize somebody in your organization that might map this, maybe somewhat generally? I'd be kind of curious. So I'd love an answer, yes or no. Do you feel like this might match somebody, and or does this give you a quick image of who this person might be in your organization, kind of where they're kind of getting, where their strengths and where their needs are? Because I want to use this to switch to another person, just to give you a different perspective. Different person, same organization, same role in sales. And this person seems like just a bunch of fives. Meaningful work is their lowest at a 4, but 5, 6, 8. The opinion matters to the boss, so they're probably staying there because they think their boss actually cares a little bit about them. Outside of that, they're punching a time card at this point. It's kind of the sense that I get. And that may not be a bad thing, but at least you can make a decision for yourself and say, that's not an issue for me. I'm going to put it on the shelf. I don't need to pay attention to or I want to level up performance. How do I get there to find that person? Because 9 months ago, 12 months ago, 3 years ago, before COVID, this person may have been 8s and 9s. The world has changed for them. See that. I'm curious, what's going through your mind, Sherri and Lou?
This is a cautious approach to this employee, because regardless of what maybe they were doing or where they might go right now, this is, even though it doesn't look like it, there's no red zones, if you will. This is a danger zone. This is a preemptive. Tomorrow, this employee could quit.
So would you see
easily.
that this might be a quiet quitting situation?
It's possible. Right? It's
I mean, let's be
possible.
current, right? I mean, even though that's always been common and people check out all the time, but I mean, let's be real, that could be an indicator of a quiet quitter. So if you're looking at this and you might have somebody on your team, wouldn't it be beneficial to you to catch it beforehand so you can actually turn it around, or at least try to anyway.
Yeah,
that's what this person believes, that they're not well paid. They're less than average in being well paid. They don't feel like it's challenging work. They don't feel like it's meaningful work, and they don't feel like their opinion matters to their coworkers. They're just pumping the brakes, just trying to stay moving. That's all.
Yeah, I guarantee they're looking for other work.
So Sherri, I think we got to give you the gold star for today for calling this one right. I think
I don't say much, but one time, let's get into it.
You remember those old ads back in the 80s when E.F. Hutton speaks? Everybody listens.
That's right.
I'm gonna call you E.F. Hutton from now on. Let's go take a look at a different role, because this really kind of doesn't matter what the role is. I'm going to just pick another person here. Overall score is a 5. They feel like they're well paid. But gosh, growth in tasks, a 3. Opinion matters to the boss, a 3. This might be a person that you're just paying too much money, because their head's not in the game, and they're not leaving because they don't want to work any harder, and you're willing to pay them anyway. Is that a good situation or a bad situation? I think that's for you to determine as a leader. But I'm kind of curious, audience, do you see that same sort of thing? Do you have a potential person in your company that's just kind of checking the boxes, whatever they need to do, because they feel like they're getting well paid? And they're like, if they're going to keep paying me for this, I'll stay as long as they want. I'm fine. They don't really care. I'm kind of curious what you all think. Sherri and Lou.
Well, I'm gonna you preluded this conversation with a story, and I think I'd like to kind of add to the story a little bit. Yeah, because I was in a very well paid corporate job at one point in my career, very well paid corporate job. They paid all their employees very well, and realistically, it was because that's really what they were worth that these employees are worth that. They were worth that based upon the criteria and the requirements to bring us in. Now, over time, it's like anything else, right? Over time, things begin to wear down if it's not patched up, if it's not updated, if it's not cleaned up, right? If you take, and I love brick homes and brick buildings. I love brick, like the different color bricks. I just love good brick buildings. But have you ever seen brick, if it hasn't been kept up with or cleaned up with over time, that will devalue your home. But at one point, it doesn't change the fact that how much money it originally cost to build the home with brick.
Yeah.
It doesn't change that, but the value will drop because it's not been maintained. You see, and this is, to me, a great example, because so far, all three of these employees have been okay with their pay. So they seem to be getting paid well, but everything else seems to be not being maintained. So there's no value based upon what they're getting paid to the job and role that they're doing. So they're not feeling valued as much as they're feeling that they're getting paid for the value that they're supposed to be adding, if that makes any sense.
It actually makes so much sense. I'm kind of smiling because, gosh, you know how every good comedian kind of starts telling a joke and kind of comes back to that same point, right? Which is what makes you laugh. I was chuckling because I thought that work was minorly challenging. Was there any growth in my tasks? I couldn't work any harder, and they wouldn't let me hire any more help to go faster. Was I happily employed? Yeah, I was making a lot of money. Low stress every month. Hey, Vinay, you got 0 on the board. What have you done? I've only been at work 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Meaningful work. Yeah, it was. I mean, we were one of the first SaaS companies on earth. I really thought it was worthwhile, but nobody cared beyond that. My boss did not care how I felt or thought. My coworkers were actually a lot of fun, Jason and Jeff. And promotion option, I couldn't go anywhere, but I was well paid. This is me.
Yeah, and you are not alone. If you really think about it, right? Any viewer out there, you know that if you've been in leadership or in any role, any length of time, you've all been this person. We've all been this person.
I think what I've gotten out of this whole session here is that I'm a lopsided star.
Join the crowd. We're missing a point.
This little point of the star needs to a little more.
Walking a little cricket, Vinay.
Or a little SpongeBob. I don't know. SpongeBob, Patrick.
Well, I hope everyone who listened in got some value out of this and seeing that you could take a look at these things and show how much is happening in your organization, how much you might be leaving on the table by not understanding how your people feel. And it's not just a bunch of charts and bar graphs, because those are super difficult. I've spent my whole life around data analytics. I still don't get a lot of value out of bar graphs. But when you start to see these behavioral graphs and you start to see, you can start to empathize with the person behind the data, holy moly, you can start to think more compassionate as a leader, because leadership, I believe, is an internal thing. Once you start to internalize what you're seeing there, you can act really effectively as a leader. And that's, again, where Sherri and Lou come in. Sherri and Lou, is that the way you saw this whole session? That kind of the way it unfolded for you? You guys figured me out that I'm a lopsided star too.
We all are in some way, but I 100% agree on that. Right? It's like anything else when it comes to data. Vinay, I think you might agree with this. Before my daughter, before she was able to drive, when I was teaching her how to drive, even though they were in the car with me all time for their whole life until it's time for them to learn how to drive, they never knew what the gas tank looked like. right? If you take the gauge and you imagine looking at the gas tank gauge in your vehicle. It's the first time you've ever seen it. You're like, I have no idea what this means. What does E mean? What is F? I don't know what it means. And then all of a sudden you're like, that's how much gas you do not have. All of a sudden now it has a whole different meaning to understanding the gauge. You see, and that's where you come in, Vinay. This is where the data comes in. You have the data, but now what does it really mean will make a difference in the impact of your company.
Well, something I want to do is tell you that I've worked with Sherri and Lou. They were kind enough to help me think high enough. We built an assessment, a series of assessments together, an employee to manager assessment and a manager to employee assessment. And the whole idea is it will give you instead of a 360 evaluation that I've done in the past, which takes you hours and hours and go back and forth, it'll take you just like this thing. It'll probably take you about 4 to 5 minutes to fill out, both as the employee as well as the manager. And you can get this level of insight. And it's a free assessment that we'll put into the comments here. Or if you'd like us to send it to you, type assessment in the comments and we'll make sure to send it over to you so that you can take that assessment for yourself and find out. There's no cost to it, but you'll get this level of results and insights. And you can use it for anyone in your team. And Sherri and Lou will help you understand what you can do and how you can talk to your people. And I'll help you understand how you can take a look at the graphs to say, here's what that action plan is. So I hope this was of value. Please type assessment in the comments if you'd like to see something like this for you and your employees or for your managers for that matter. But Sherri and Lou, I always like to wrap up with you all kind of giving us one or two of those principles that you all use to raise leaders to that next level of effectiveness. Any principles that you might bring out here?
Well, I think we talked about about employee engagement, right? And it really, in order for a leader to really understand why it's important to understand employee engagement, is we have to really think about somebody else besides us. So that brings us into 10 principles that we believe that every leader must follow to lead with influence. That one of those principles is the others principle. Fits right in here. It's not about you. It's about them. Because eventually, when a full circle, it ends up becoming about you, does it not? If your numbers aren't hitting where they're, and this is now not to give credit to your old boss there that you don't like too well, because honestly, I've had one just like him. But the fact of the matter is, he ultimately was responsible for numbers. And I am sure that his approach was more like, well, if I act like I don't care, you're just going to work harder and I'll get more numbers. Well, that didn't work. You quit and ended up leaving, right? That's what ends up happening. So it's not about us, it's about them. Even though the bottom line is important, even though we're responsible for that as leaders, it is about them. So every day you come into the office, anytime that you're ready to manage your people, you think this way. Today it's not about me, it's about them. And then understand that you have the power and ability to change the dynamics and the approach of your employees by just understanding them. Adding value to them takes you actually valuing them first.
Yeah. I'll close with two last quick things here. Number one is that with that boss, I will tell you, I actually, in hindsight, look favorably upon the fact that I actually had that opportunity to learn that, because now I learned what I don't want to be, right?
Yeah.
I will not do that, right? So I have learned what that guardrail is, and I bounced off of it.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is for anybody who's been listening in, I really do hope that you got some real utility out of this conversation, saw how you can use that employee experience and kind of find out what shape I am, and kind of use that and go home and do something about that, or go to the office and do something about that. I'd ask one thing of you, and that is to give us a score on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 means we need a lot of improvement here. We need a lot of work in terms of the utility that you got out of this session. That's a 1. Or if you got a lot out of this, you felt that there's a lot of value that we delivered here, please give us a 10. So anywhere on that scale, 1 to 10, please let us know. 10 being what we would love to hear from you, but give us your candid feedback and just enter a number into the comments. But with that, thank you so much for taking some time and listening into us. Hopefully you got a lot out of this. This was a fun conversation. But Sherri and Lou, as always, thank you for your time.
You bet. It was fun. Thanks, Vinay.
Yeah.